They had told me if I wanted to put a blanket over my head and hide my face. I had no reason to hide my face. I never thought, for one instance, when you see these people coming in and out of being arrested, that they have these things over their face. There's a reason for that. But I had nothing to hide. And I even made the comment that I didn't care if the whole world had seen me, because I was an innocent man. They just left that last part out. As a matter of fact, every correspondence, anybody I ever talked to or I wrote to, when on the end I would put respectively submitted A period, Kirk Bloodsworth, A period, I period, M period, which means an innocent man. The trial lasted for about 2 weeks. I was arrested on August 9th. 8 months later, from the day I was arrested, I was sitting on death row. The trial lasted about 2 weeks. Everybody pointing at me. That's the guy. That's him right there. That's the man. One right after another. Strange thing happened before when the lineup was going on. Nobody identified me in the lineup. They picked out number 3. 2 weeks later, and this was the 2 little boys, the parents of one of them, called in and said, "We made a mistake. It's not number 3, it's number 6. They were showing my picture morning, news, morning, noon, and night on the TV in Baltimore. Now, the trial lasted about 2 weeks. These people were pointing at me. I got up there and I told everybody, I said, I had nothing to do with this murder. You've got the wrong guy. You've arrested an innocent man. Never gone. The gavel came down on my life. They sentenced me to death, and the courtroom erupted in applause. I found myself standing in the hallway of one of the most notorious prisons in the United States, the Maryland Penitentiary at 954 4th Street. For just 2 weeks before I got there, a guard had been disemboweled by an inmate from a perceived insult, and I was going right on his feet. I guess it was the summer of 1986, my case was overturned by the Court of Appeals in Maryland based on evidence about another suspect that the prosecution at the time withheld from my defense attorneys. He gave me a new trial, and the same people came forward, the same people kept pointing me out in the courtroom. And the gavel came down again, and this time I got double life. You know, the only difference between life in prison and the death penalty is they take your life in the life sentence and they end your life in the death sentence. You know, I was telling you about reading, and I remember, as I told you, I was a prison librarian, so, but I read, I don't know how many books, it's a couple thousand, I guess. And one day I was sitting in my cell and the flap opened up and this guard stuck 4 books in my cell. Now, the first book was about origami. I figured I didn't have time to fool with that. The second book was about pastel drawings. I kept that one. The third book was, believe me, it was a book you didn't need in prison. And let me tell you, you really didn't need that book in prison. And the fourth book was called The Bloody by Joseph Wambaugh. Anybody heard of Joseph Wambaugh? He's a crime writer. He had several movies made from his books, The Onion Fields, The New Centurions, and others. Well, in this book detailed the first time this new technology was ever used called genetic fingerprinting. Now, back in those days, you know, DNA testing in the post-conviction setting was never heard of. Nobody did that. That became me the first person that ever had a capital conviction to seek for a post-conviction DNA testing after a trial, after 2 trials, and convicted twice. The prosecution had nothing but circumstantial evidence to start with. There was nothing, no physical evidence whatsoever in the Bloodsworth case, in Dawn Hamilton's murder case, that pointed me as the murderer. Just innuendo and so-called omissions that they said I had made. Now, the prosecution agreed. They said, Mr. Bloodsworth, look, we'll let this evidence come in. You can do your DNA test, but you're going to have to find somebody to pay for it. My lawyer took $10,000, and he was given to me by the appellate division. Took $10,000 out of his own pocket. He believed in me so much. In 1994, after I got out, I had got a full pardon from the governor of Maryland, William Donald Schaefer, and $300,000 from my trouble of 8 years, 11 months, and 19 days, 2 of which I spent on death row. Anybody want to take that deal? I got to tell you something. It's all about accuracy and truth and honesty. We have an adversarial system, but there is one thing for sure. You cannot be adversarial to the truth. Prosecutors have to play the rules. Police have to play the rules. Defendants have to play the rules, and so do the defense lawyers.